Halfwit is proudly sponsored by Motion Theory Physio, Georgia Grace Design, Lucky Duck Events, and the weekly 50 quiz. All four of these amazing businesses are South Australian owned and operated, and you can check them out on Instagram. Also, if you would like to get involved with the show as a sponsor, or you know someone that has a extraordinary story to tell, you can flick me an email to the Matt Whitford podcast at gmail.com. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Halfwit. I am your host, Matt Whitford. Thank you again for tuning in, and I was going to apologise for it being 3 weeks between episodes, but I was on school holidays. I was able to sneak over to the Eyre Peninsula and visit some amazing towns, Cummins, Port Lincoln, and the beautiful Coffin Bay, where anyone that's been there, you would know what it's like when you're driving along the foreshore or walking along the foreshore and an emu just comes out of nowhere and scares the crap out of you. But aside from the emus, it was a very enjoyable week, and back at school this week feeling refreshed and ready to go. On today's episode, I chat with Ben Porter. Now, when you're listening, you might think that Ben and I are just going to talk footy for about 4 hours. That is not the case. We were very disciplined and only kept that to a few minutes. But Ben's gone through a lot of health issues over the last 7 years, and the way he's come out the other end and he's fit as a fiddle. It was a fantastic chat with Ben, and I hope you enjoy it just as much as I did. So without further ado, enjoy episode 9 with Ben Porter. Ben Porter, welcome to Halfwit.
Matt Whitford, thanks for having me.
Now, Ben, I'll never forget our first encounter, 2007 at the South Adelaide Football Club. Were you the South Adelaide Junior Director?
I was the development manager in 2007, and then I obviously coached you in 2008 in the under-19. The last ever under-19s coach of South Adelaide. That's something to claim, isn't it?
Mate, you were the one that gave me the nickname, the Golden Fist. So
yep.
I then started using a double fist. I should have actually been marking for footy, mate. Yeah. So,
well, if I was going to write a report about you, I'd write erstwhile and desperate defender, the Golden Fist.
Exactly, mate. But no, I've got you to thank for it. So, I'll never forget, mate. You're a big, imposing figure, and we instantly bonded over, I guess, our love of the North Adelaide Footy Club, which we will talk about, mate. But you're 54 years old, mate, and you grew up in Belair and went to Belair Primary.
I did. Glory days back in the hills, and cold mornings, but gee, I had a fantastic life, and we were very fortunate to grow up, in the 70s and early 80s, and obviously, Belair Primary. I lived in Glenalta, which is just out of Belair, but you would walk up the hill to the Belair Primary School every day, and I think that's what gave me a nice fitness base, walking up out of the valley and up to the Belair Primary School, and then obviously spent a lot of time in the Belair National Park as a kid.
I actually was there the other day playing frisbee golf, disc golf.
Oh, yes,
yes.
It's, well, that's where the old golf course is. Now, here's a chance for me to plug my mate Peter South. Now, Peter South's a terrific fellow. He's involved with the North Adelaide Footy Club these days, but he runs a bit of a walking group for older blokes like me. I'd be the youngest in that group, but he's got some mates who are in their 70s, all cancer survivors. So, yes, big shout out to Peter South. Got me fit again, that boy.
It is a great part of the world, that Belair area. So, and we're just talking a bit before off air about how, obviously you're like me. When you're a kid, you played footy and cricket. There wasn't too much else out there, but you played school. School sport was so big. You didn't really go to a club. So you played your Belair Primary School, then high school.
Yep, went to only high school. Look, you're right. I mean, primary school football was where it's at. We used to have the Lightning Carnivals down at Unley Oval and played in a couple of grand finals. We won a premiership and under 10s, if you call it a premiership. But great days. And you run into kids who are my age now, back from those days, from Mitcham Primary School and Blackwood Primary School, Hawthorne Dean Primary School. And we all talk about the great days of being in the there was the Sapsars and knockout cups, but the carnivals on a Sunday, and we all dreamed of the same thing. I think of perhaps gracing the big stage.
It's one of those things. And I used to be a primary school teacher, and that's
Mm-hmm.
where I also met you when you were working for IDM,
Right.
now Victor Sport.
That's right.
I used to call up Ben and like, Ben, I've got a sports day tomorrow. I need this. I need some egg and spoons.
Yep.
You'd be there in 2 hours, mate. And then
I'm still the go-to man. When in doubt, ring BP is what I say.
I used to have to free up about 2 hours if you were rocking up because we just talk footy and talk rubbish. But
yep.
That whole school sport, it has gone now more and more towards playing for a club. So.
Yep.
1987, you played your first, your junior footy for the Unley Jets.
Yeah.
And then, throughout year 12 onwards, you played footy and cricket for a number of clubs.
Yeah.
Kept you pretty fit.
It did keep me very fit. And, we touched on 87 and 88 because, yes, I've been playing school football, but then joined a club in 87. And then in 1988, I was doing matric and I was training and playing football 6 times a week. It was midweek games for Unley High. It was Sunday for Unley Jets, and it was 4 sessions of training. And I wouldn't have had it any other way.
37 years ago. It's a long time.
Some time ago now, Matt. Yes.
My year of birth. So,
yeah.
Mum and Dad, I remember you saying Dad was a surveyor. So for our younger listeners, there are quite a few younger listeners on Half-Wit. What exactly did and currently a surveyor, what do they do?
Yeah, well, back in those days, my father was the Surveyor General of South Australia, and he was the youngest Surveyor General since Colonel William Light. So that's probably something not many people know about. And way back in the early days of South Australia is unique in the fact that it was pre-surveyed and pre-sold, unlike any other capital city or city in the world. That's why Adelaide does have its unique grid system and why it's such a terrific place to get around. It's because of Colonel William Light and his plan, Light's vision. Surveyors, they help to map the land and create the plans with which we have our titles. Your certificate of title is based on a plan system that's built from the work of the surveyors who are collecting the information in the field, the lengths and the measurements as to, who owns which piece of land and where the road goes and where the fences are. So, yeah.
And you did that later on as well?
I did. I worked in the Lands Department. I was a technical surveyor for about 15 years with the Lands Department. And, I must admit the working in the government allowed me to pursue my love of playing football and to start coaching football because it was a job that was pretty secure. I broke my leg. I played for Taylor and Ben in 2000. I broke my leg late in the year, and that was okay because I sat in the office for 6 or 8 weeks while my leg got better. So, yeah.
And like myself, mate, your mum worked in the bank. So
she did. ANZ Bank, 13 King William Street.
And both my parents, Bruce and Jill, they worked in the bank. And
yep.
I feel like everyone worked in the bank in that sort of that 60s, early 70s.
It certainly was a different way of doing things. There's no ATMs. There was no of the electronic sort of platforms we have these days. It was very important that you went to the bank and they could count your money correctly for you.
And these days there's less and less branches, and I'm with
the customer service has gone backwards, I think, Matt. And I think that maybe they should have a good hard think about that because I've banked with the same group down here at Glenelg because of that customer service there, the old credit union or savings and loans it was.
Yep.
People's Choice, whatever. But they've always had a bit of a one-on-one relationship with me and my money, and I think that's a good thing.
Because all of these kids of today don't actually, they're not going to go to a bank, and they might even, the cash is it's becoming less and less. That's a totally other topic of conversation. But obviously, you played a lot of footy and cricket throughout the late 80s, 90s, and 2000s.
Yep.
We don't have 4 hours for this, Ben, but can you just give us a few of those clubs you did represent?
Yep. Okay. So, obviously, Unley Jets played under 19s at Sturt and really enjoyed my time there. And we weren't very successful, but we had some great times. And I think that was, I always had a bit of a taste of wanting to play a higher level of football, but that certainly really got me interested. I then was playing some football at Morphy Parks. I played a lot of A-grade footy there, and then obviously played some representative football, some Southern League football, and then Southern districts when the carnivals were a big thing in those days. And suddenly you're playing on the SNFL ovals, you're playing against SNFL greats. I remember playing against guys like Alan Stringer and Mick Redden, Chris Duthie. I stood him one day in an association game. So you're getting a bit of a taste of getting closer and closer to where you wanted to be. I won a best and fairest at Morphy Parks as an A-grade footballer.
Speaking about Morphy Parks.
Yep.
I'll never forget, end of 2023, I had a free Saturday, and the footy club I was playing at, Adelaide Luther, and their cricket team was short, and I said, yeah, I'll jump in. So I think we only had 10. Well, I rock up to Adelaide Lutheran Cricket Oval, not the best cricket oval going around. They are getting a redevelopment hopefully soon.
Sure.
Playing against Morphy Park, who's bloody keeping Ben Porter. So I just remember that day.
Yep. I think, was that the day the Borges brothers made hundreds each, and it was 4 for 416 or something? It wasn't a great day for me.
It was awful for you. You were keeping the whole day.
Yep.
Every ball you were encouraging. You didn't shut up.
No. Yep. You bang the drum when you're the wicket keeper. But, that was one of the least enjoyable days of cricket I've ever had. Well done to the Borges boys. They batted very well, but yes, we weren't great.
I was in awe of you, and I remember I was really looking forward to getting a bat.
Yeah, it was never going to happen.
Didn't happen. My only contribution was I think I umpired for 20 overs, mate. But so you've obviously played a lot of footy, and like myself, once you finish your career, you get into coaching. So obviously that's where I met you, 2007, 2008 at South Adelaide. And I also, Happy Valley, I think you started coaching there 2009.
That's right. Yeah, so I coached, after Morphy Parks, I was the playing coach at Kenilworth, and I learned a lot at Kenilworth. I made a lot of mistakes, but because I was still playing and still playing pretty well, I was able to have a good go at it, and had 4 years at that. And I really started to get an idea of what my strengths were as a coach, and the ability to speak in front of people started to blossom. And I was still playing some okay footy, but then the more and more as the seasons went on, I played less and coached more and got a real appetite for it. And then applied for the job at Cove and got the Cove Footy Club job in 2005. And we had some great players. We had guys like Steve Bomber Ryan, we had Josh Ramsey playing, Craig Bevan, Scott Gill, very good footballers. And we quickly shot up the ladder and found ourselves in the preliminary final in 05 and 06, which then...
I made my debut for the Brighton Bombers that year. Didn't play against Cove that year.
Okay.
Probably would have been dropped down to the twos by then. So
well, we had some great games with Brighton, and that's what led me to South Adelaide in 2007 as the development manager. And then, of course, 08, you and I crossed paths.
But I'll never forget 2009... when you got the job at Happy Valley, you still had my phone number, and I was walking around Westlake Shopping Centre with my girlfriend at the time, and the phone rang, and I think it must have been a number. I said, "G'day, Matt Whitford speaking," and you just gone, "Matty Whitford, it's Benny Porter. I've just been appointed A-grade coach of Happy Valley. Can I have 5 minutes of your time?" And I said, "Okay, Ben, I would love to play under you."
Yep.
And unfortunately, I'm staying at Brighton, and I'm glad I did because I won a premiership a few years later, but. I'm just going to fast forward to 2017.
Yep.
And this is probably where the best part of, I guess, one of the main reasons why I did want to interview you, because it is not just about footy.
Yep.
Even though everyone I walk past, Matt's Matt with a podcast just about footy. It's actually not.
Yes.
You started coaching Marion.
I did.
Who, I'm not going to lie, I used to play against Marion when I was at Brighton and never lost to them.
Yeah.
Until a few years ago. And they were a basket case. They were in the Southern Footy League, and you take over in 2017.
Yeah, and I took over in 2017, and basically all the A-grade paid players from 2016 all walked. They had a guts full of the place, and then they all walked away. Wayne Slattery's lad had been playing. They'd all gone elsewhere, and left us with a pretty hollow shell. But I have mentioned this before, that one of the things that interested me about the club was it had a very good junior program. Russell Stansbury and his guys had really worked hard to get their Auskick program going. And I talk to coaches these days about when you look at a club and you want to coach them, have a look at how many 15 and 16-year-olds they've got. And if they've got none, be very concerned. But if they've got plenty, you can build from there. And in 2017, we brought in a few blokes. Jason McBride's name, people forget how valuable that bloke was. He was a very big, strong, imposing lad. He needed to be pulled into line a little bit, but I was capable of doing that. And it allowed me to put 15-year-old Zach Angel and Harry Davey and these kids out on that SFL Oval and know that they were going to lose, but they weren't going to get beaten up because McBride was a bit of a safety mechanism for them. And from that moment, that was when we turned that club around. We started to measure. We were never going to win a game of football. We lost in round 3 that year. We played Marion. We played Ranella. Marion played Ranella, and we lost by 47 goals. And I had some guys who I knew from South Adelaide Broadbent and a few of these guys came in and shook their hand and said, bad luck and all that sort of stuff. Very respectful. And Chris Bradwell was one of them, and I thanked them for that. But fast forward 10 weeks later, when we'd been working really hard on our culture and we'd been working hard on things like our tackle count and then handball receives and, little basics like that, we turned that 47-goal defeat into a game at halftime at Ranella. We were down by 7 goals. And a good mate of mine, Josh Vick, who I coached and really enjoyed, was a fantastic footballer in his own right.
He's a primary school principal. Yes, he's a good man.
No, he's a lovely bloke. He was not very happy with his Ranella boys because they're only in front by 7 goals in that game. We closed the gap down to about 12 or 13 goals. So we actually closed the gap. We laid 109 tackles that day as a group of people, and that was a great measurement of effort. I think that was a real sign that the club was starting to heal itself, and we were starting to focus on the things that we could do. And because there had been a lot of individuals at Marion, and we built some really positive team play and some very team philosophies. Laid 109 tackles, lost that game by 12, 13 goals, and people go, oh, well, Ranella won easily, but we closed the gap by 34 goals.
Improved.
We sure did. And the following year, we obviously moved to the Amateur League.
Yeah, so 2018, Marion make the switch like a lot of the Southern Footy League clubs did. And I think O'Sullivan beat Lonsdale with the best team all year. And right. In the second semi-final, so you moved to Div 7.
That's right.
Second semi-final, they've beaten you. They've gone straight to the grand final, and you've got a week off, and you're coming up against St. Paul's, and this is one of the most incredible football stories, and probably the most incredible life stories I've ever heard in my life.
Sure.
Ben, can you just take us probably just to the Tuesday night?
Yeah.
Obviously you're licking your wounds from the loss, but you know that you're one win away from a grand final, and if you can just take over from there.
Yeah. Okay. So Lonsdale had well and truly been the best side that year, and they'd beaten us pretty handsomely both times in the minor round. But in the second semi, we'd actually won the first quarter pretty well, and we'd up by 4 or 5 goals. Lonsdale came back. It was a good game. We ended up losing by about 13 points. But suddenly the gap again had been closed. And I remember talking to some players and said, battle lost, but war is still winnable. And Lonsdale went into that grand finals, hot favourites. But playing at Kenilworth, the St Mary's Oval, allowed our young kids and our, Jimmy Smith and Paddy O'Day, guys who could really run, a real chance. And go back to the Thursday night of the preliminary final, we're playing St Paul's, and
Tuesday night or the Thursday?
No, it was the Thursday night.
Sorry.
Yeah, so Thursday night. And, I used to think I was pretty funny, and I'd make a few jokes every now and then. We trained pretty solidly for an hour, just to get a bit of a touch and run around. And I brought them all in, and I started to tell a joke about, I don't know, something about Pat O'Day or something I was saying. And then as I said the words, then all this gobbledygook came out of my mouth, and it was not right. And I went, I'll have another go at that. What's going on here? And I've gone to speak again, and I've basically gone into shock. And at the time, I was having a stroke. I didn't realise I was having a stroke, but I was clearly not in a good way. And you could hear it was a very extraordinary experience. It was almost an out-of-body experience because I could hear people talking, but I was not really there. You know what I mean? It was very unusual. And then they sort of got me into the change rooms, and Dave Watkins, pretty famous trainer, he knew what was going on, and he sorted it out very quickly. And because I'm sitting there, my side of my face is all down, and I'm sort of going, what's the problem? And they're going, you aren't well, mate. And it was good that I was at footy training because Flinders Medical Centre was only up the road there, 20 minutes or 15, not even 5 minutes away.
It's 5 minutes. I drive past it every day.
Yeah. So I was very fortunate because if I'd been anywhere else, I probably would have died. So, they rushed me up to the hospital and do some tests and get some drugs into me and straight me out. And then by 11 o'clock, I'm sort of back to normal, but obviously something pretty sinister and severe had happened. So I'd had a stroke. So
you were able to walk off Marion Oval.
Yeah.
You were assisted on.
Yeah, assisted off, and just sat in the change rooms until the ambulance arrived. And then, again, very much in shock, and you don't really know what's happening. Obviously, there's a bit of concern for you, but you don't feel concerned. You're obviously concerned that you can't speak properly, and you're concerned that you've clearly got a deficiency on the side of your face there. So
by 11 o'clock that night on the Thursday night,
yep.
Are you are you feeling like you're back to normal? Are you?
They pumped me full of drugs, and I think that, and again, the results speak for themselves because it was such a quick turnaround. I was able to be looked after very quickly. There was minimal damage done, and I woke up the next day feeling fine. They tests, and they showed you a scan of your brain where there'd been a few little white spots, but you see other scans, and some people have strokes and their whole half of their brain is wiped out. It's completely white. And that's when you get people you can't talk, they can't walk, they can't feed themselves. It's a terribly debilitating thing that can happen. And so I feel very, very fortunate to have walked away, not completely unscathed. I mean, there are times, you know me, Matt, I like to talk, and there are times that every now and then I'll mispronounce a few things or get something slightly wrong, and there's the odd little tick here and there which tells you that there is scarring. And the true story, I had some extremely vivid dreams for the months following all of that, and I'd say these dreams were just extraordinarily vivid and real life, and the doctor said, "Yeah, that's scarring on your brain from the situation you found yourself in."
So how long did you stay in hospital for?
Probably that week.
Yep.
The week. So I missed they beat St Paul's, and I missed that preliminary final, which was great. They got into, and then obviously I was home by the Friday, and then the Saturday comes and it's grand final day. And
so if we just stop there for a second, because I remember, so you've woken up in your own bed on the Saturday morning. The team that you've been coaching for the last 2 years, you've been belted the previous year by Ranella by 40 goals, and you're now in a Div 7 grand final, and you're going up to Div 6 the next year. I had a couple of good mates, Jason Dickenberg, Jeff Lyons, and Trevor Rigney playing for O'Sullivan beats Lonsdale. Another mate, Scott Murphy as well. And was at Kenilworth. I drove down from Strathalbyn, and I was pretty lucky that there was a little gate that was open. So I snuck in behind the
Don't tell John Schultz that. He'll be chasing you for your entry money.
So I snuck in, saved my $15, and my mate Lyons, I think he got a concussion in the first quarter. My mate Dicko was rucking well, but Ryan Wade, you're full forward. So I went to primary school with Ryan, and you guys were unbelievable. And I remember probably early in the last quarter, I had a few friends coming up to my house in Strathalbyn, and I said, it's 4:30. I'll probably 45 minutes to get back to Strath. And as I was walking out the gate, Ben, there was a massive roar from on the wing at Kenilworth, and they were rebuilding all the club rooms at the time, and I didn't really go around there at all, but I've heard this roar, and I literally thought the siren went, but the game was still going. It was only 5-10 minutes.
Yep.
You'd been obviously told that the boys were up.
Yeah, look, I was not listening. There was a feed going, and I had a fair idea that the scores were close. And look, I'd been given pretty strong advice that I wasn't going to coach. And in fact, it was good for me to keep well away. My heart was being monitored at the time. I had a heart monitoring system in me or on me. So I turn up with about, I think the roar you're talking about is me turning up with about 6 or 7 minutes to go. And I'm just standing just to the side, and and a couple of people had sort of seen that I was there. And by this stage, Marion were sort of 21 points in front, and we're going to win.
Yep.
And look, it was a bit surreal, and one of those great. It's a bittersweet moment. I mean, obviously, I would have loved to have been coaching that day, but the longer you think about that day, you feel I could so easily not be here.
Yeah.
And I'm getting to see a club that had been denigrated for a long time suddenly achieve something that nobody thought it could do, and I knew that I'd had a pretty major part in that, and it was a great day for all the people, and the players loved it, and we loved it, and it was look, it wasn't ideal for me with my health, but I'm still here talking about it. So there you
got to lift the Premiership Cup.
Yeah, I did. There's a great photo of me and Stephen Saunders holding up that cup, and I'm certainly looking very healthy. I'm certainly,
mate. You're looking $1 million.
Yeah, I was pretty big. I was about 115 kilos then, but look, great times, and it's a very unique grand final story. There's no doubt about that.
So you said before your heart was being, your heartbeat.
Yeah.
Did it get up like when you knew the boys were going to win?
Yeah. So I didn't feel it. I was fine. I mean, I don't know. I just never took any notice of it. I'm always a pretty dramatic sort of a bloke, but Yes, my heart was being recorded, and what happened was I went and had my monitoring done at the cardiovascular centre on the Monday. Yeah, Monday. I got actually interviewed on the ABC on the Monday morning, and I said, "Oh, I'm going to go in," and it was all pretty funny.
The Matt Whitford podcast, which is a little bit a step up from the ABC.
Look, yeah, that's right. I feel like I'm moving on now. But the cardiovascular surgeon said, "Oh, how are you feeling?" I said, "Yeah, I'm feeling okay. The team won the premiership, and that's great." He said, "Oh, well, you are aware that your heart was recorded at 240 beats at about 10 to 5 on Saturday afternoon." I went, "Oh, I didn't notice." He said, "You couldn't feel that?" I said, "I had no idea." Obviously, that's pretty serious. So, yeah, look, I had a very unhealthy heart. I had atrial fibrillation. I inherited AF from my father. And, it was one of those things, because you go back, because I've been playing football and cricket all my life, I was always saw myself as a fit guy. And I still am a fit guy, but my heart had a problem, and it was only functioning at about 35%, which is very poor. So you can imagine a flat balloon. My heart was a flat balloon, and then the AF, obviously the irregular heartbeat created the blockage, and then of course you have a stroke in the brain. So yeah.
So the season finishes.
Yep.
Does it cross your mind that, maybe I've got to, because I've been an A-grade coach before, just a coach and I'm a teacher, and, highly stressful environments. And did it cross your mind? Did anyone say to you, "Oh, look, maybe this is a sign to just give it up and take it a bit easy"?
They certainly did. But I wanted to have another go and keep going. I mean, I love a challenge, and I didn't ever really consider not coaching. But look, I coached in 2019, and that became my final year as a coach. I think more because I was starting to recognise that the game had changed, and my position inside the footy world was perhaps changing, and I was perhaps becoming yesterday's man. And I think that, the 2019 season, we were in Division 6. We did okay. We ended up beating Fitzroy twice, who won the flag. But change was coming, and I walked away from it. Yeah.
So, September, October 2019, you're no longer a footy coach.
That's right.
What does life look like for you then?
Yeah, well, things hurdles continue. And look, I say this to my kids all the time, that life will continue. The hurdles never stop coming. They keep coming, and that's what being a human being is all about. In 2019, about August, I had a bit of a sore throat. Thought it was a bit of a cold, when you get, your glands flare up a little bit. There's a bit of a lump in my throat. Anyway, I went to the doctors, and they said, "Oh, we better have a look at that. We'll get a biopsy done." So I had a biopsy done, and sure enough, I've got cancer in the throat there. As it turned out, I had massive problems with my lymphs, and I had my tonsil had cancer. So that's pretty dramatic.
So you were just feeling a bit unwell, went to the doctor, or just?
Yeah, that's right. Feeling unwell, went just to the GP. Went to the GP, and they said, "Oh, we're a bit worried about that lump. Let's get a biopsy done." And then they've gone, "Well, you've got cancer." And it's an interesting one because it's a cancer that's becoming very common in men my age, because back in our day, we didn't get vaccinated for the HPV virus. And unfortunately, I had contracted HPV without knowing it. And then, of course, it grew into a cancer after sort of, 20-odd years of doing what you do as a young person. And it became very serious pretty quickly. But that's when, you talk about enjoying coaching footy, and you talk about what you do in life, then you start meeting people like Michael Swidajewski, who is the ear, note, throat specialist based out at Fullerton Way. An incredible guy. He's cut into my flesh. He's removed 13 lymph nodes. He's removed my tonsils, severed. Basically, there's a photograph of me, and I look like I've been attacked by a shark. I've been absolutely chopped into. You wake up in the intensive care, and even then you're sort of thinking, "Oh, is this really happening?" And then you sort of look over, and there's a guy there with a big concave part of his skull's been taken out, and then you start to realise that this is pretty real. So that was the first bit, and then of course the the radiotherapy starts, and then it's burning into your neck. You're having 30 radio sessions, which is dealing with the cancer, which is basically you put under a mask, a very claustrophobic thing. You put under a mask, and they're zapping and burning your flesh externally and internally. So you've had this massive operation where huge chunks of flesh and muscle have been cut out of your neck. Then you're having that burnt. And then they thought, well, because we want to really do the scorched earth, and because you're young enough and fit enough, we'll throw in 3 months of chemotherapy on top of that. So you are feeling pretty beat up by this stage. And I'll never forget it when Swidajewski said to me, he said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go the scorched earth policy. We're going to chop in here, and we're going to do that, and we're going to do 30 of this, and we're going to burn you and do all this. And I said, Michael, there's nothing you can do to me that I can't handle. And he looked at me and said, that's the sort of answer we need to hear, because I suspect, and and I don't want to denigrate anybody's cancer, because cancer is different. There's all different journeys, and I've met some wonderful people through this cancer journey. My cancer was a curable cancer, and it was one that I was determined to beat. What happened was that you suddenly, because you've got this burnt neck, and you've got chemotherapy being pumped into your body, it's just poisoning every centimetre of your being. Your relationship with food starts to change, and you can't eat, you can't taste, you're nauseous, you're vomiting constantly. I lost great for weight loss. I lost 33 kilos, and I was in a bad way there, and I was on another funny story when I started. I had to have this the nasal tube put into my so they could feed me these drinks.
Gastric
nave. That's it.
My old man had one in for about 5 weeks. It was the worst of it. It was the worst part of being in hospital.
Absolutely diabolical, and because you've already got a burnt throat, you're already feeling awful. You then have to, while you're awake, you've got to have this tube go up your nose, inside your throat, and then into your stomach, and you're helping to force. You feel like you're being abducted by aliens. Yep. It was awful. It was an awful experience. Anyway, and they go, oh well, we'll meet the lady from the mob that create these drinks. Got these little chocolate drinks that were going to keep me alive. Anyway, so we met this young lady the next day, and I've got the gastric tube in me, and she goes, oh well, we have to clean the tube first. So she injects this sort of lukewarm water into this tube, you see, and it goes into the tube, down up my nose, down my mouth, into my stomach. It hits the lining of my stomach, and I vomit everywhere, completely vomited into this, all over her, all over the bin. It was. I don't think she works for that company anymore.
It's one of just you saying that. Then obviously, and my mum had breast cancer 10 years ago, and she's now absolutely dominating, and Dad's been in had many a gastric nasal tube, and he's in Flinders Private as we speak. Probably reading the gold news of the SANFL, which we'll talk about later.
Sure.
The thing about cancer, Ben, you've got this illness that could potentially kill you.
Yep.
You've still got to pay for it all.
Yeah, that's right. My wife worked particularly hard and was a saint through this, and I wouldn't have survived without her. You're right. I had 2 young kids at school. I had to obviously stop working. And look, I met some people. This is absolutely true. When I was having my radio sessions in the morning, I met people I was in my pajamas. These other people were going to work. It was just incredible. I felt so unwell, I could barely scratch myself, and these people are going off to work. So, and then I met a lady there who'd had so much therapy on her face had sort of half melted, and she was clearly a lady who used to pride herself on her look, and she'd have these beautiful shoes on. She'd turn up with these beautiful shoes and a beautiful gown, but her face is all burnt, and it was you just saw the incredible strength in human beings in that. I learned more about myself in that period of my life than I've learned in the previous 40-odd years.
Because you talk about, and I can imagine what you would have been like as a footballer, Ben, like tough as they come. You're 6'4". you can describe toughness in many ways as a sporting athlete, but I think that toughness you showed
Yeah,
on a hospital bed in the chemotherapy chair,
yeah.
it's just a different type of toughness.
It is, and I think what it taught me is you don't know how tough you are until you're fighting for your life. And I think that people need. It's easy to say because I've come out the other side and you go, oh well, cancer not that bad. I mean, it's a terrible disease and it's a terrible existence, but it's made me sharper as a human being. It really has. I listen more intently. I've got great intent now. I've achieved so much more post cancer than I perhaps had prior to the cancer, which seems unbelievable. But it sharpens your focus and it makes you extremely focused on your conversations you have with people, and every interaction you have with another human being now is different.
Yep.
And funny. Just this year, I've met an incredible lady, a lady by the name of Cherie Adams, who her own son died from brain cancer, and he was only 26, lovely young fella, in the prime of his life, and that was a crushing blow for her. She had cancer herself, so she's been through the ringer, but she now has used that experience to become a trauma counsellor and help other people with brain cancer to get through and get meaning to their life and understanding and to heal. And it's this is the path that having cancer has taken me down, and I'm very fortunate to have met so many great people and in many ways reinvented myself.
Yep,
because of it. Yeah,
mate, you were looking $1 million, and to any country footy clubs that looking to recruit a centre half back or a ruckman, I've got one about 2 meters away from me. So
except he's 25 years too old. Anyway,
oh mate, unbelievable. I've just been touching on what you've just said. My mum, Jill, who I loved a bit, she's always made me feel very grateful, and that life could be a lot worse.
Yep.
And I'm not comparing my injury last night or anything. I played social basketball last night, Ben.
Yeah.
Still trying to think I've still got it.
Yep.
And I've pinged a calf.
Yep.
For I think it's the 18th time.
Yep.
I've done 9 on each leg.
Yep.
I got home last night and trying to explain to Georgia, my partner, and she's like, "You all right?" I'm like, "Well, maybe 10 years ago, I was like, this is terrible. This is the worst thing." No, it's not. It's a torn calf. Like, I was still able to walk up the stairs of Heathfield High School today, and it's not the end of the world. But I think the resilience that you've shown, and
and look, and it's a good point. You only have to look what's happening in our world at the moment. You see what's happening in the Ukraine. We see what's happening in the Gaza Strip, and you just go, we are so lucky to live where we live, and if we don't really see what actually goes on in the world, you think about those people who are having treatments, they're having cancer inside Ukraine as we speak while their country's being destroyed. Yeah, it's just unfathomable to see that humanity still hasn't quite worked that part out yet, has they?
No, and we are pretty lucky. And we spoke before when we were just sitting outside outside the North Brighton studio, right next to the Pringa Park Primary and Brighton High School.
Yeah.
What a great double to do that.
That's right. Yeah, well, my kids did that double, and fantastic part of the world. Again, I live at Somerton Park, and I walk down to my beach, although I need to check the app that Peter Malinauskas has put out to see if I can go swimming because of the algal bloom. But there you go. First world problems, Matt.
It is. And we spoke when we were outside just about, like, Adelaide is just, to all our listeners out there, regardless if you're in Adelaide or in a state, it is one of the best parts of the world to live. And I think it also is an amazing place to visit. And we are very lucky. But Ben, like, your health now, 2025. Oh, I was also going to ask you before, when you were going through all your treatment, late 2019, did that cross over into any COVID?
It did. It absolutely did. COVID just started to hit the news when I was at the Tennyson Centre. Big shout out to the Tennyson Centre. The people, let's talk about the people who looked after me. These people are incredible. Yep. They just, they upstairs at the I can't remember the centre's name, but anyway, upstairs they had a bell.
Yep.
Right, and these people are all suffering. And if you had a good day or you overcome a certain amount of treatments, you were allowed to ring the bell, and that bell offered hope to other people, and because we're all in there facing death, and some of the people in there died. Let's not kid ourselves, but that unification of that bell, and the way the care that we receive from the cancer nurses, That's not something you forget.
And I said this, I think, on a previous podcast, and my partner's a midwife, and
Yep.
what a stressful, like high pressured environment. But
Yep.
doctors, nurses, midwives, fireys,
Yep.
they're the real heroes.
They
like,
are. Yep.
I love my job, and a lot of people, and I said this before, that you're a teacher. Hats off to you. Like, you must do you're the most incredible. No, we're not. We're teachers.
Yeah.
We actually have an amazing job.
Yep.
We're not going to work every day, and it's not highly stressful. People aren't going to die in front of us. And but mate, you're looking very well now. And
as I said, it's because I stripped all that weight off. I then rebuilt it. I went down to 82 kilos. I'm now back at 100 kilos. But that's muscle. I'm now back in the gym. I'm back playing cricket, walking, eating better.
Still wicket keeping.
Still wicket keeping, yes. 5 association wicket keeping awards in a row, but who's counting?
You did miss round 1 on the weekend.
I did. So I'll be behind the 8 ball, but I'm certain that I can fight my way back into reckoning for a 6th. Now, look, you don't play for awards, Matt. Although I've kept all my trophies over the journey. Sport continues to be a great leveler and a great instigator in my life, and I've always encouraged my kids to play sport. And, it doesn't matter whether you're not the best. It doesn't matter if you're not at the highest level. It's that community spirit. It's that belonging. It's the care you have for each other. As we mentioned before, I'm playing Section 8 cricket as a 54-year-old, and I'm already nervous about how I'm going to perform this weekend, having played and coached 600 games of football and 140-odd games of cricket. It never goes away. That desire to do well and that nervous tension that you have as a sports person, it's why you do it.
It's how I met you through sport.
It is. Yep.
And you were saying before, and obviously your job with IDM and Victor, you were a rep and you were going out to primary schools, and obviously I did some business with you as well. But it's the best thing about sports, the people you meet.
Absolutely.
And very shortly I'm going to catch up with a few mates that haven't seen for a while, and sports, it is just the best. So, mate, like I said, you're looking incredible. I've also just hit 100 kilos, but probably not the way I wanted. So I probably need to go for a walk down the beach.
Get behind the stumps and do some wicket keeping. It's good exercise.
I think I need to go fine leg to fine leg. So, I do. Obviously, we just touched on, Ben. You're now working for Victor Sports, and you've been doing that along with IDM for the last good 20 years.
Yeah, 15, 16, 17 years, something like that. Yeah. Obviously, a little break in there while I was sick, but yeah.
Yep. And married to Merle.
Yep.
Your 2 children, Jordan and Holly.
That's right. Yep.
They're all obviously adults now, and
that's right.
You and Merle you can go away any weekend you want to. And
well, funny about that. Last weekend, I went. My twin sister's daughter, so my niece, got married to a lovely Greek fellow. So we went to a Greek wedding last weekend. Well, goodness me, do the Greeks know how to party up and bring their energy? There was ouzo, there was broken dinner plates, there was the zorba. It was an incredible show. So yeah, we had a great weekend.
Fantastic to hear. While we're sort of on the topic of now that your 2 children are older and etc., you were telling me before when you went over to Hawaii that time. Now, for all our listeners out there, Ben actually let's go back to when the process started. When were you on that flight to Hawaii with the family?
Yeah, so that was 2015, and I'd had a look. I've since made great friends with the Woodville South Footy Club people, and I caught up with a lot of them this year in the Division 5, and we had some great laughs. But it wasn't a very successful season in 2015, and I started to recognise that maybe my time in football was coming to an end. Look, as it turned out, 2016 I helped David Tiller at North Adelaide, and then 2017 obviously coached at Marion. So I did have a little bit more left in me, but the game was certainly changing, and I wasn't necessarily keeping up with it, and I didn't particularly like the way the game was being played. So I thought, I was starting to think, what am I going to do next? And I had an epiphany. I woke up at about 4:30 in the morning, just before we were flying out to Hawaii for a family holiday, and I went, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to write a book, because I'd kept all my footy budgets, I'd kept all the way it was videos, all the bits and pieces. I'd been to so many games of football, and just lived and breathed it as a young person, and obviously what also had happened is with my coaching journey, I'd met a lot of the ex-SNFL greats. Greg Anderson worked with David Tiller, knew Greg Whittlesey, Bruce Lindsay.
Greg Whittlesey was on the podcast also. So
Greg Whittlesey, one of the best.
He sat in that exact chair.
Yeah. Well, Greg Whittlesey is one of the best human beings I've ever met. Funny story because Greg, I've got to do the voice, Greg.
Don't worry. Hey, for our listeners, listen to episode 5, all right? It's fantastic.
He's just a tremendous guy. So I said to Greg when I was in an association game or we were handing out trophies or something, I said, Greg, I'm writing a book. I'd love you to do an interview. So he gave me his number. So I drive to the Yankalilla Bakery one night.
It's either the Yankalilla Bakery or the Yankalilla Pub.
Yeah, so it was the Yankalilla Bakery, and I've turned up at 5 o'clock. It's pitch black, and he hasn't turned up. I'm thinking, what is going on here? And I'm sitting there in the dark, and they're turning off the lights. Next minute, out of the darkness, out he comes in his shorts and his work boots, and, g'day, Greg. And we sat for a couple of hours and talked about his football life, and just a humble, genuine guy. And what I like about Greg is that not just that interview, not just the meetings I'd had previously, but every time you see him at the football, he will still come and say, "G'day, Benny Porter."
He's always got time for you.
He is, and this guy's a McGarry medalist. He's a superstar footballer. 1988,
your year 12, my year of birth. So
mate, what a guy! And I just got enormous respect for Greg. And I met some other wonderful people. Eddie Fry, Ian Borchard, just tremendous guys.
You could mention 200 names.
Mate. That's right.
But so. You're on the flight to Hawaii, 10 hours or whatever, and that's where you sort of this is what I'm going to do, and I really resonated with that when you said it before, because that was me end of last year sitting at home, and I'd thought about the podcast for a while, then I finally thought of halfwit, maybe the Golden Fist.
That's right. Maybe not as easy to market the Golden Fist, but anyway.
Whereas, but I liken it to that, and then you can just really sink your teeth into it. So
it's a good point, and I'm on in a couple of weeks' time. I'm speaking at the Indie Book Festival about successful published authors, and the one thing I'll say is, if you're passionate enough if you're determined enough and passionate enough about something, you should follow your dream, because you'll be amazed where it will take you, and you develop skills that you never thought you had, and you elevate yourself to places that you never thought possible. And it's you're so right, because this is a product. This book is come out of the ether. It's come out of nowhere, and now it's a physical book that people look at and hold and enjoy. And the fact that you sit at home knowing that people are reading your work, it's very it's a bit surreal. Yeah,
it's like knowing that people listen to my podcast.
That's exactly right, Matt.
But Ben, this book's not going to make you a millionaire.
No.
And I don't even know if the costs have outweighed. I know at the moment I'm down about 10,500, but I don't care.
That's right.
But the book, 10 clubs for 27 years, the golden age of the SANFL. So, a lot of our listeners, and we spoke before, the SANFL, I'm not saying it's dying, but, there's more, no one's getting any younger.
No.
And, when you were growing up, when my dad, Bruce, my grandpa Max, when I was growing up, the SANFL, it's what you did. You went there with your dad.
That's right.
And the AFL's, I think now 35, 36 years old. These, that 60s, late 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s.
Yeah.
For all our younger listeners, the SANFL, you were going to the SANFL to watch your heroes.
Yeah.
You were going there to watch your Isaac Rankins, your Tex Walkers, your Travis Boak. So
that's right. Neville Roberts was one of the best interviews I did. Neville gave me 2.5 hours of his time, and he spoke about how the SNFL was the only game in town. And that's what really – and there was a look in his eye, a twinkle in his eye that made me go, hello, I'm onto something here, because he knew how special it was, and he was a big – he played football for Victoria, Neville Roberts, when he went to Richmond. So he's been there, done it all. And he said, look, there was a bit of interest in the VFL across the border, but the SNFL was where it's at. The Nord versus Glenelg versus Sturt, Port, North, these great clubs going at it in front of good crowds. You'd have 100,000 members. You'd have 50,000 people at the grand final. You'd go to the Prospect. You go to Nord Oval. You'd go to Nord Oval, there'd be 17,000 people there. Yep. And it's a tiny little boutique ground. You see when the gather round I love, because it allows Norwood to be shown again.
What it was like 30, 40 years ago.
Absolutely was. Exactly right. And this year we watched GWS play St Kilda, and you're so close to the action.
Yep.
Like you're jammed in like it used to be, and you can touch the players.
Yep.
Whereas the AFL at the Adelaide Oval, you're a little bit excluded.
Yep.
It's become, the players are untouchable now. Whereas in my day, I'd walk on the Oval, go and look at the 3/4 time speech. You go in and
we get autographs.
That's right. That's exactly right. You get autographs after the game, and I remember my dad when I first started going to prospect in the late 70s. We would go into the social club, and people knew who he was because he played league footy at North Adelaide. And you'd stand there, and you were intimately a part of that club.
Yep.
And that was pretty special. And I think that's why the book resonates so well, because and another guy, Craig Fosdyke, good friend of mine, he's Duncan Fosdyke's brother, lovely fellow. I said to him one night, I said, Craig,
he's not a teacher, is
he?
He
is.
He might be up at St. Martin de Porres.
That's him.
He's the principal of my niece. So
right.
if Maggie Trembar's giving you any
Yeah.
grief, just let me know.
Yeah, that's right. Lovely guy.
She's a ripper.
Yeah, lovely guy. And I said to Craig, I said, what do you think it is about the book that's resonated? He said, it's the joy. He said, you've recreated the joy of that time through the images and the words and the interviews. And yeah, that's where it is. And people love it.
And speaking, because the book, you focus on 1964 to 1990, and we'll talk about your father here briefly as well, because, back in the, I'm saying the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, playing SANFL reserves it was still a very good quality of football. Whereas these days you might play reserves for 1 or 2 or 3 years.
Yep.
If you're not getting a league gig, you go and then play some country footy or some
That's
amateur
right.
footy and get a bit of money. But your dad played league footy for North Adelaide. Also played a lot of reserves footy, and probably the best story you've about your old man. What was your dad's name, by the way?
John
Porter.
Yep.
Playing reserves in 1966.
That's right. Yeah. So, and I spoke about this at the Past Players. Mark Soderstrom interviewed me at the Past Players a day last year, which was a very special day because Sonny Morey was there, and I had one copy left of my book, and the introduction sort of went along the lines of, well, I've got the last copy here. What about we give that last copy to the bloke who got the first ever kick for Central Districts, which was Sonny Morey in 1964, which obviously is the beginning point of that book. But yeah, back to the old man. The story goes that, and this is, again, these are the sort of stories I grew up with as a kid. So you're being indoctrinated into this stuff as a very young person. And Barry Robran was obviously a household name. He was still, he was had passed his injury. He was still playing some okay footy in 79 and 80. And we'd go and watch him play, and my dad was telling me stories. He said, oh, well, in 1966, the old man was still captain of the reserves because they'd won flags in 64 and 65. Fantastic. They're going for 3 in a row. And they're into the finals again. They're into the first semi-final. They're going to play Glenelg at the Adelaide Oval, going for 3 in a row. Anyway, the old man was the captain and a selector at the time. And anyway, they're about to pick the team on a Thursday night. The door flies open. It's one of the recruiters. And the recruiter said, oh, look, before you pick the side, I've got this bloke I want to bring down from Whyalla. And the old man is not happy. My mate Widow, he's been playing in the side all year. I don't want to drop Widow so that this bloody lad from Whyalla can come and have a game. I said, that's no good. Oh, no, I insist this guy will be worth it. Anyway, the old man lost that one, and Barry Robran appeared in the 1966 reserve prelim final or semi-final, and then the following year he's playing league football, and by 68 he's a Magarey medalist. So,
and to all of our listeners out here, if I'm to mention the word Barry Robran, I would honestly say 95% wouldn't have a clue.
Yeah.
And as much as that hurts me to say, we were brought up with it, but
yeah,
I think what our listeners need to understand is that Barry Robran, like, we're biased.
Yeah.
The greatest player to ever play AFL. And if you want to go back a step, he's 100% the top 5.
Yeah.
People put him with, we're going back a bit, your Lee Matthews and your Russell Eberts. And, you could talk about now your Gary Ablett Juniors. And, he was the greatest footballer.
He was an incredible player. And just the way he moved, he just was athletic and fluent and graceful. Like, not many footballers can say they're graceful. You and I certainly couldn't say we were graceful footballers.
No,
erstwhile disciplined defenders, sure.
I could punch a footy.
A footy.
That's all I could do.
Yeah, take the odd mark. But get Barry Robran's ability to sidestep players, both feet, mark the footy, He was an exceptional talent. And, what people don't know about Barry, he was good at every sport. He played Gillette Cup cricket for South Australia, made a 40 as an opening batsman. He played state basketball, very good at table tennis. He was an exceptional person.
And for a lot of our listeners as well, the Crows won the 1997 and 1998 premiership, which Barry's son Matthew played in, and number 10, and a very good centre half forward.
He was, yeah.
Very, he's probably compared to his father, but I think he kicked 7 in a 98 prelim. But the book, mate, I'm just going to quickly read a bit of the blurb.
Sure.
And I love it that Ben actually brought the book over tonight. Now, I'm pretty sure I bought 2 off you. My dad bought one, and we actually gifted one to Tim Sewell, who commentates for the SANFL.
Okay,
a fantastic commentator.
Yes.
Hopefully, move up the ranks. But with this is Ben Porter on the blurb. With my dad playing in the SANFL from 1959 and 1966, Adelaide rules footy dominated my young life. Growing up at Adelaide Hills, I played for Blair Primary, and dreamt of one day gracing the big stage. A typical Saturday during the winter months of the 70s and 80s revolved around freezing cold mornings, playing against Mount Lofty up at Heathfield, next to where I work, and bloody hell, that is the coldest place at 8 o'clock.
Mate, it's 7:30 in the morning, goodness.
With frostbitten fingers, and we threw ourselves around in the slush, be home for a hot shower, cup of hot chocolate, and then off to either Prospect, Unley or Norwood to stand this terrace and barrack for my beloved team, the Roosters. And I guess, Ben, the beauty of me doing this podcast is I'll get to interview, people with great stories, but that's exactly what I did with my dad.
Yep.
It's the exact same. I was also lucky that I got to go and watch the Crows afterwards. And my best mate, Andrew Saul, his dad, Bruce, as well. That's why we're such good friends, because of sport. And I just really resonated with that, mate. And they were good times. And hopefully the SANFL can just keep going and keep chugging along. Who knows what's going to happen with potentially the Crows and Port joining the AFL?
Yeah. Look, it is an interesting one, and there's no doubt about it. I mean, the figures don't lie. The numbers are going okay again, I must admit. But, you go to games of football now and there's 1,500 people, or sometimes less than 1,000 people. And they work really hard, the SANFL clubs, to stay afloat. And, little things like the mid-season draft, that must really stick in people's throats a little bit, because, you work, big Harry Boyd from Norwood, a generation ruckman at Norwood finds himself taken off their list, halfway through a year, and it impacts your ability to compete for a premiership. And I just think that's really disrespectful. And it just shows that the game has changed and we are a feeder competition.
It's becoming more and more of a business. Yeah. And, during those years of 1964 to 1990 and even a bit later, you could jump on the ground straight off the game. You could pat the players on the back. And whereas now you got to, you go to an AFL game, unless you're playing the mini league or unless you're trying to, catch a caravan, which one of my guests was previously. Yeah. So, but Ben, mate, I know my dad's, I said before, he's currently in Flinders Hospital, and, going to see him every day, sometimes you can run out of things to say, but I took the book in the other day and I'll take it in again when I go see him tomorrow. And, 2 hours passed that quickly. So, like I said, if anyone out there is listening and wants to get your hands on a copy, 10 clubs for 27 years, the golden age of the SANFL. Type it into Google. I've got a hand sign one, mate. So I'm very lucky.
Very lucky. That's right. Look, Dylan's bookstore is
on the parade.
Yeah, on the parade. Done a fantastic. They've sold an enormous volume of books for me. Ross Dillon, a lot of thanks to him.
I'll tell you about that bookstore. And for people listening, even if you are not a big fan of books, that is the greatest bookstore.
It is.
It's on the parade, nice part of the world. But every time I'm on the parade, I will go in there, and I reckon I've bought an Oasis book last week, and I always walk out buying a couple of books.
Well, I'll tell you how supportive they've been. When the gather round was in town along the parade there, and they had the street party there, I walked past we had a couple of friends over from Sydney, and I just said, oh yeah, my book might be there. Sure enough, they had displayed my book at the front in a special football display, obviously for the gather round, and that's a pretty special thing for them to do. And it again, you walk a bit taller because people are getting to take on board what you've written and what you've enjoyed yourself. And, we talk about the motivation for the book. I wrote that book for myself, and I felt that it was a story that needed to be told. And I was happy if I didn't sell a single copy. Well, we're into the second print already, and, big thanks to bookstores like Matilda, mostly books. I've been starting to get into the hospitals now. I go to the news agencies there. The Royal Adelaide Hospital. They'll buy it. You can buy a book there, and you can imagine, as you say, you're sitting in hospital, probably not enjoying things very much. Pick a copy of the book up and go back into the glory days.
It's a great coffee table book. So, Ben, I've the Half Wit, the Matt Whitford podcast is we are expanding at the moment. We've got merchandise, we've got coffee mugs, and now we've got bumper stickers, mate. So hopefully that'll fit on the back of your car, mate.
Look at that. That is fantastic.
When I ordered them through Vistaprint, I did not know the bumper sticker was going to be that big.
Yeah.
However, mate, chuck it on there.
Yeah, I will do that.
Next to your North Adelaide 2026 membership bumper sticker.
That's it.
But mate, I've absolutely loved having you on the podcast, and I'll see you 2 or 3 or 4 times a year at a Roosters game or at an ACHPA conference. I always say good day, and your story is incredible, mate. You're 54, you're looking 34. But Ben, thank you so much for coming on Half Wit.
Matt Whitford, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. All the best with it. You're doing a great job.
Thanks, mate. Another massive thanks to Ben Porter for being on today's episode of Half Wit. If you would like to get your hand on his book, 10 Clubs for 27 Years, The Golden Age of the SANFL, like Ben said, you can head to the Dylan's Bookshop on the Parade in Norwood, or you can flick me an email, the Matt Whitford podcast @gmail.com, and I will point you in the right direction. And with Christmas just over 2 months away and you're struggling for ideas for your dad or your grandfather or your uncle, this makes an excellent gift, and I highly recommend it. Ben will even sign it for you too. Next week's episode of Half Wit, I'm going to chat with 3 Australian sports stackers. Now, you might have heard of speed stacking. That is what sports stacking is. Donna, Theo, and Ruby are going to come into the North Brighton Half Wit recording studios, and we're going to chat about what sports stacking is, how they got into it. I'm really, really looking forward to it. But that is enough from me. I'm Matt Whitford. Thanks for listening.